We're going to each make an opening statement, and then we got about 10 to maybe 12 minutes in total. We will take questions. So obviously we got some new information that's hit the scene, and I'll just cut to the chase. It really doesn't change anything in terms of the process. We knew that the discussion of witnesses would be here soon, and I think every senator that I know has said that they will cross that bridge when they get to it, and each has a different opinion probably of how important that's going to be. I will emphasize that to date, accepting what we heard last night, that the case has been weak, built on kind of a circumstantial platform. There was actually, and I think when I was walking off here one day, there was no aid actually delivered. There was a meeting, there was no pressure, there was no investigation. So, and I think the president has already acknowledged that, what Bolton is contending in his book promo is not the case. So I think what it's done is taken a already hot topic and added some fuel to the fire. And for me, and from a place like Indiana, it still goes back to the origination of how this occurred, wanting to, malign the president from when, before he was even inaugurated. And a lot of that plays into every different senator's calculation of what to do. For myself, I always wanted the process to be fair, and I think it's going to be that way, and it'll be interesting to see what other senators think after we have our luncheon, which gets started a little earlier than normal. John.
Well, there's a so-called blockbuster report in today's New York Times. It's a story about selective leaks from a book that you can pre-order on Amazon.com from John Bolton. To me, the facts of the case remain the same. There is nothing new here to what the House managers have been saying. It's interesting because I believe the president's team did a great job on Saturday. A wonderful job presenting the case, and I'm looking forward to hearing from them today and tomorrow. What the president's team was able to do on Saturday was truly undermine the case of the Democrats and undermine the credibility of Adam Schiff. So, as I've said last Friday right here, I think there's going to be something new coming out every day, very similar to what we saw in the Kavanaugh trial. New information, old information told in a different way to inflame emotions and influence the outcome. I say, take a breath. Let's listen to the president's lawyers today in the case that they present. We're going to get to the specific question of witnesses on Friday. We have 2 more days of hearing from the president's team. We have 16 hours of questioning by the senators. And voting begins in Iowa on Monday. This coming Monday, elections are on the ballot. The public was polled this past weekend. Do you have enough information? Do you believe senators have enough information to make an informed decision at this point? And the public said yes, they have enough information, but we're going to be asked that question on Friday. So I would say at this point, just take a breath, listen to what we hear from the president's defense team today and tomorrow, listen to the questions, and let the voters decide the outcome of who should be their president.
But it has changed something. It's changed the calculus of some of your Republican colleagues as it relates to witnesses. Can you tell us about the conversations you've had with your Republican colleagues where the ground seems to be shifting here? And are you prepared for this trial to go past potentially the State of the Union, past next week, longer than expected if it were?
So after the last session, I did speak to some that have been kind of grappling with the issue, and I think, yes, it probably will make the dynamic different. But I think it is clear that the question of witnesses was going to come up anyway. And I think in this case, it may move the needle in one direction or another. And for the people that still are thinking that, the foundation of how it originated, what we've heard so far, every senator will have a different opinion of how important that is. But I'm not going to deny it's going to change the decibel level and probably the intensity at which we go about talking about witnesses, which is going to be on Friday.
Yeah. And the interesting thing to me is, Chuck Schumer, he comes up here and he always said, I just need 4 Republicans. Ladies and gentlemen, that's not about witnesses. He needs 4 Republicans to be the majority leader of the United States Senate. It is his magic number. That's his focus. He has known from the beginning that he was never going to have an opportunity to actually remove President Trump from office or remove President Trump from the ballot. His goal, as clearly stated, is to become the majority leader, not to remove the president.
I want to add one thing to that. This is a political process, and when it comes to how each of us has to look at this, that's different for every senator. And I think politically, Speaker Pelosi knew that we may be coming to this day. I just heard today, and you don't hear much about it, President Trump is leading the candidates in a New York Times Siena poll in Iowa. He's leading in some of the swing states. And when it all comes down to it, when you push this hard on something that you've tried to do for so long, there is a political consequence. And after we get through this, that's the true measure, because we're overturning one election and we're trying to prevent another, and that'll weigh into everybody's conversation.
Senator, last week you said, I asked you if you thought it was okay for the president to withhold aid to coerce an announcement investigation. You said, and I quote, I'm saying it didn't happen. Apparently, John Bolton says that it did. Is John Bolton
Okay, so you know as well as I do, when I said it didn't happen, is that the aid was released. They had the meeting. There was not an investigation, and the one fact witness, President Zelensky, said there was no pressure. If you have to spell it out in detail, most people got that. That's what I meant. We'll find that out if we get to him as a witness. And President Trump said that what he's saying is not the case. So,
if you take a look at the picture of aid to Ukraine, and I've been there a number of times, President Trump has done so much more to help the people of Ukraine, the freedom fighters, the liberties of the people there, with the aid from the United States than we ever got from the previous administration. President Zelensky said he didn't even know that there was a temporary pause in the aid until after reports came out and after the aid started to flow. So, if the issue is aid to Ukraine, the quid pro quo, the money went out, President Trump received nothing in return.
take one more, and then John will take one more.
Just big picture here.
Yeah.
John Bolton is now saying that the president told him to continue withholding this aid until Ukraine agrees with these investigations. And it's not just Bolton. We also have the testimony from Gordon Sondland, the comments from Mick Mulvaney. Do you believe John Bolton?
I was asked that last night. Is he a credible witness? And I have no, when it comes to John Bolton, if we get to witnesses, it's going to have two things involved. He will be vetted in terms of all the things you do with a witness, whether you believe him or not from the get-go. And then with certainty, we will have witnesses too. So that's what we'll talk about, and it'll be in that context.
And there's nothing new here that John Bolton didn't know before the House managers rested their case and stopped calling witnesses, and they never chose to call John Bolton. They have for 25 years undermined the credibility of John Bolton on item after item and not trusting his judgment, his temperament, and you've seen that for a long, long time of his history. So we're going to have a chance to hear from the president's lawyers at 1 this afternoon. We're going to listen closely. You can imagine every ear is going to be tuned to that as we hear that defense. But from this point, when I take a look at what the beginning part of your question, the aid went, the investigation was not announced, so there is no quid pro quo.
Senator, are you worried about how it's going to look to voters if you vote against hearing from witnesses? Democrats say that would be a cover-up.
Well, they've been saying that for 6 months.
Yeah, all along. So I think that's where it comes down to each senator having to make that decision. And you're going to have to weigh your conscience and what the people back home want you to do. And even when we get there, I think it's going to vindicate the president, because in many states, where as much as the president infuriates half the country, He inspires and elates the other half. And we're still dealing with this. And I'll cite even what's happening in the Democratic race. Bernie Sanders is surging. I came here because I was fed up with business as usual here. And President Trump and Bernie Sanders are manifestations of that. I heard Bernie just a little bit ago. I'm speaking against the establishment, you know, talking to his voters. And it'll all be played out in the long run. We're going to get through this trial. The president's going to be vindicated because he came here to shake up the system. The agenda is working, and we'll go on, and we're not going to overturn one election and prevent another. Thank you.
Thanks.
Where's Senator Lindsey Graham?
He was surrounded by press on the first floor, couldn't get up.
Hey, Andrew, this is also DC. Hey, buddy, 429 and 430 are done. It was a two press conferences. Yeah, they're both 429 and 430. So you can sign up. Thank you, buddy. Cheers. Leo?
John Bolton, que ayuda a que los demócratas aumenten la presión en sus colegas republicanos para más testigos en este juicio político. Explosivas declaraciones de parte del ex asesor de seguridad nacional del mandatario estadounidense Donald Trump, John Bolton, presionan nuevamente a republicanos a hacer un llamado a más testigos en este juicio político. Hola, ¿qué tal? Muy buenas tardes. Pues las explosivas revelaciones de este libro que está por publicar el ex asesor de seguridad nacional del mandatario estadounidense Donald Trump, John Bolton ha aumentado la presión ante los republicanos para que hagan un llamado a testigos en este juicio político. Los demócratas, como el líder de la minoría en el Senado, Chuck Schumer, están diciendo que esto debería ayudar a como por ejemplo el voto del Consejo de Seguridad Nacional y también Mahmoud Beni, el jefe del gabinete, recordemos que en medio de una rueda de prensa hace unos días atrás dijo en directo que sí había un quid pro quo en cuanto a la ayuda con Ucrania y que esto se hace con múltiples países, como dando por ejemplo a los países del Triángulo Norte y los logros migratorios que ha logrado el presidente estadounidense Donald Trump. Estas que en el momento también fueron declaraciones explosivas, pero ahora el argumento de los republicanos es que Bolton solo está haciendo este tipo de declaraciones para lograr vender su libro, publicarse y que los demócratas consideran que se aplica al presidente Donald Trump desde que inició su mandato. Mientras tanto, senadores republicanos como Romney y Susan Collins ya han expresado preocupación por estas nuevas revelaciones de parte de este nuevo libro de Bolton, que fue publicado en parte por el New York Times, y aseguran que estas nuevas revelaciones ayudarían a que estos voten a favor de traer nuevos testimonios a este juicio. Sin embargo, aún los demócratas necesitarían al menos 2 votos más. Esta es la información que tenemos desde Washington. Para
Ba cái pin đấy ngày ngày thì pin